Welcome back to Idaho Hook and Hunt. As you can see, today it's a little rainy out here. Today's probably going to be a shorter trip because we're expecting wind as it gets a little later into the day. So it's going to be just a short one today, and it looks like it's going to be quite a wet one. But I wanted to go through with you today a little bit of how we fish when the water is cold and the fish are shallow. Surface temperature right now is around 39 degrees. So these fish are going to be generally in the top 15 feet of the water column, at least the ones that are actively feeding. So I'm going to show you today my planer board system, as well as what else I do when I'm running on shallow fish. So to begin with, I'm running a chartreuse and pink dodger with a chartreuse and pink spin and glow behind it. And I'm going to run this on my planer board, which I already have out, which you can see is out right there. I will show you how I rig it up. So I'm going to run this line back. Running on the planer board, I'm going to run it back probably about 70 feet. You don't have to go back quite as far on a planer board as you might when you're long lining. Okay, that is 70 feet right there. And then what I'm going to do is I have these little downrigger clips, just like that. This is attached to a shower curtain hook. So what we're going to do is we're going to clip it onto the line right here. And with these, I go about as far in as they'll go. And then you put the shower curtain hook on that cable, and then you're just going to run it out on that cable as far as you want it to go. So I'm going to run it out about to where the board is out there. Once you get it where you want it, which is right there, I'm just going to lock it. And then you put it in the rod holder, lock in. And I'm going to lower this rod holder down just a little bit because I don't want the cable to hit the rod. There we go. Keep it nice and low like that. That way when I'm turning, the cable doesn't interfere with the rod. And that rod is now fishing. So then I'm going to take another rod here. We're going to get set up. And this rod, we're just going to long line out the back. This rod is getting the orange dodger, orange and green dodger, with an orange spinner hook chain. Something I generally do is I will run 2 different flavors of corn. In a given day, I will run one on one side of the boat and the other on the other. So this right side of the boat today, I am running an orange corn, and this is the shrimp krill that I'm running on this side of the boat today. This one straight back to 120 feet. in the downrigger. Yes, the fish are shallow. You might wonder why I would use a downrigger with the fish shallow like this. But what you're going to see is I'm not dropping this downrigger deep at all. I'm only going to go about a foot below the downrigger. So I'm going back about 100 feet and I'm going to flip it into the downrigger. There we are. That the rod is nice and tight. That way if there's any bump on that rod at all, I'm going to notice it right here. Just helps me to detect those strikes even if they're soft, which in the spring they tend to be. These fish in the spring tend to short strike an awful lot. And then this final rod, we are going with the pastel watermelon, the Majestic, with the watermelon coca bug behind it. Again, getting that peak shrimp anise corn. Rod also is going to go on the planer board, so I'm going to show you how I set up the planer board, how I get it out there. So it's pretty simple. I've got these big pen level line reels. That's my reel spool on my downrigger mast, or my planer board mast. Flip it in to the planer board. Make sure the bail is open. Drop it in the water and let it go out. I'm going to send it out about 50 feet or so, and then lock it in. We have a fish on right here. Yep, fish on. Got fish on. On the downrigger. See the hit, Chris? You want came off right there. Nope, it didn't. It's still there. It felt like it came off. Turn it around. I'll bring it to you. Okay, scoop under it. There we go. Fish in. Good job. All right. You can just leave it right there. I'll take care of that after I get this plate board rod out. Alright, let's get it to the distance you want. Lock it in. And then we're going to set this rod and I'll get back to you when we've got some more action. First kokanee of the day right there. Not very big. Brand new kokanee fisherman.
Brand new kokanee fisherman.
Gonna catch his first one today.
Hopefully 8.
This time of year, electronics are mostly gonna be from giving voltage and the fish are shallow. Fish are shallow. Down. So as Chris said, he's a brand new kokanee fisherman. The reason why he is on my boat today is because he bought a boat last year. He's never kokanee fished before. He wants to learn how to do it. So we were talking last year about getting out together. We never did get a chance to. But this is our first time getting out together to kind of show him the ropes, teach him how to set up for kokanee a little bit so he can start getting his own boat set up. You saw me talking on the radio there just a moment ago. That's because my friend Ben, who fished with me last week, who you saw on the previous video, he's also on the water today on his own boat with his son. And so we're communicating with each other. Anytime you can network and communicate with others that are on the water on the same day, it can help increase the catch rates for both of you. It's something I try and do when I'm able to. If I've got another friend that's on the water on the same day, it's as though I'm fishing twice as many rods and running twice as many different color options by being able to communicate with somebody else. So this first fish that Chris has on is a trout. You saw me catch a kokanee earlier. This body of water, it seems like we're catching quite a few more trout than we are kokanee. I apologize for the water all over the lens. It was raining pretty hard. And so we've got a lot of water on lens. You will also notice that I turned down the sound on a lot of these videos because of the wind noise as well, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing voiceover, is because you're not going to be able to hear me very well because of the wind noise. Okay, we're going to take a quick break from that video to tie up a kokanee bug for you. One of my subscribers, Larry, asked me to talk a little bit about how I tie up my bugs, specifically the knots that are used, as well as talk a little bit about leader lengths and colors. So I'm going to do that right here, and I'm going to tie up the spin and glow bug that you actually saw that last trout caught on, as well as that first kokanee was caught on this bug as well. So to begin with, I use the Maxima 12 pound. Now the reason why I use that is simply for conformity. When you buy pre-tied kokanee lures, typically they are tied on 12 pound, and so I like to stick with 12 pound to make sure I've got the same thing with all of them. And I also do tend to like the Maxima line. I think it's generally a pretty good line as well. So we're going to use this today. And we're going to tie up a coca bug for you, or not a coca bug, a spin and glow bug. So to begin with, you're going to get quite a bit of line. We are using the Gamakatsu size 4 octopus hooks today. That's generally what I use. Some guys like the drop shot hooks, and I think they're great. They're nice and thin hooks. I just haven't had any issue ever with these hooks, so these are what I tie with. To begin with, you are going to, thread this hook onto the line. Get it on there and leave lots of tag line behind it because you are going to use it. Then you're going to take your knot tool. It doesn't really matter what knot tool you use. There's lots of them out there. This is the one that I have. And you're going to put that hook in there, and then you're going to snell this hook. So you're just going to wrap it around 6 or 7 times, and then you pass it back through. There we go. And there is the snelled hook right there. Pull that knot up to the eye, and then we're going to repeat the process for the back hook. So something I like to do with this back hook is I like to snug it up as close to that front hook as possible, only because you're always going to end up with a bit of a gap when you're tying these up. And so I like to snug it up as close as I can, just to make that gap as small as possible. Anyway, and then we're going to snell this back one here. And there we have it. Double snell hook set right there. And I like that distance between the hooks. That came out pretty nice. Trim off the tag end. There we go. And now we're going to cut the leader. So I like to go pretty long to begin with, because you can always make it shorter. You can't ever make it longer once you've tied it up. So I'm cutting this about here. I don't have any kind of a ruler in here, so I just estimate, but we're looking right here at probably about probably 16-17 inches of leader here. And then we're going to go with the beads. So I've just got 3 kind of yellow-green beads we're going to stick on here. I don't think the color of these is super important, but I try to match them as close as I can with the spin and glow that I'm putting on. And I don't happen to have any green beads, but I have these yellow-green ones. All right, and then the spin and glow goes on. Or supposedly it does. There we go. Yeah, very simple. There is your spin and glow bug right there. And then the knot we're going to tie in the end is what's called the perfection loop. It's a very, very easy knot. You're going to take the end and you're going to loop it back on itself. So around the loop goes behind. You're going to bring it down to about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Then you're going to do another loop around the front over the top. Okay, you with me there? You're going to pinch it between your fingers. So you got a big loop behind and a small loop in front. And then you're going to take this tag end and you're going to tuck it in between the 2 loops, just like that. Okay. Once you tuck it between the 2 loops, then you're going to reach from behind through the bigger loop, grab the smaller loop, and you're going to pull it through and snug it down. There you have your perfection loop. And then I like to use the scissors or something just to stick it through there, tighten that loop down, and then cut off that tag end. There we go. And now you have a spin and glow bug on. This is probably about a 14-inch leader or so. which this time of year I like to go a little bit longer. When this water's cold, these fish tend to be a little sluggish. So I don't want a leader that's real short, where you're going to get a lot of kick off the back of that dodger that's going to translate back into the lure. With the fish being a little more sluggish, not as aggressive this time of year, I want a little bit of translation back to this lure, but not a whole bunch. I want the lure to run fairly straight and true, just to give that fish an easier opportunity to get a hold of it, rather than a lure that's kicking back and forth real hard. Now, that said, when it comes to summertime in June or July, I may have that lure running, as close as about 6 inches, to where that lure is behind that dodger. That dodger's kicking and that lure's kicking right with it, getting 4 or 5 inches, each direction, maybe more, as it's getting kicked from the dodger. As far as colors go, you don't have to do this, but generally what I'm going to do is I'm going to match the color of my lure generally to the color of the dodger. So usually if I'm running a green lure, I'll run a dodger that has green in it. Now this dodger, this is the Majestic. I call it the pastel watermelon. Kokomo came out with it about last year or the year before. I'm not 100%, but this has been a very, very consistent dodger for me, especially in the spring. With the fish in the top 20-30 feet of the water column. Now, you can catch fish down deep on it as well, but it's been really, really good for me. It's been one of my most consistent dodgers. And so that's a really good one to pair with something green like this. So this time of year, I'm typically going to be running either pink, green, orange, white, chartreuse, maybe some chrome. As we get a little later into the season, the fish go deeper, or if the white light gets a little bit darker, overcast days and there's not a lot of light on the water, then I'll go darker colors. Your blues, purples, blacks. You will see later on in this video, it is very overcast and rainy, as you've already seen. I will go to a dodger that's black and magenta with a black and orange spin and glow, and I actually do get hit on it as well, right on the surface, but that's because it's a very low light day. So I decided to go with something that normally I would run a little bit deeper, but it'll work shallow as well if it's a low light day like today is. So anyway, we'll get back to the video. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something from it. Again, if there's any questions, just like Larry did, ask those questions, and I'll see what I can do to get those questions answered in my upcoming videos. So we'll see you back on the water. All right, I'm going to go over my setup just a little bit here, what I've got going on today. So what I've got running is I've got 2 rods on the planer boards. Each of those rods are set about 75 feet back. This hit, again, is on the one that is on the downrigger, which I'm running 100 feet back and about a foot down on the downrigger. And then you can see at the back, that green rod is a long line rod. That rod is back about 120 feet. Now, the reason why I am running these the way that I am is this water temperature is about 39 degrees. These fish are very shallow. They're as I mentioned earlier, they're in the top 15 feet or so of the water column. At least the fish that are actively feeding are. You will typically mark some fish this time of year a little deeper, but it's rare to get those fish to actually hit your gear. And so what I'm trying to do, running the planer boards, the long line, and the rod in the downriggers, I'm just trying to get as many rods out covering as much of the water as possible. Because what tends to happen is these fish, when they're shallow, if you're running through in the boat, that the size of that boat and the motor tends to scare those fish out to the side. They'll move to the side of the boat, and then as you're going through, some of those fish do tend to come back in behind you again. That's why you want to be 100 to 120 feet behind the boat. But then also, if they don't happen to come back in, you have the planer boards out there to the side, so that those fish that may have scattered around you, they are out there to the side, and your planer board rods will go right through those fish. So you just saw that I changed rod over to black and magenta, and that was this rod that just got hit. So I changed it out from the chartreuse and pink, which had not gotten a hit all day, changed it to the black and magenta with the black spin and glow, and that was the next rod that got hit that Chris has on right here. This fish does come off, but it was the very next rod hit. I would I would guess that it may have been a kokanee, only because the kokanee tend to come off a little easier. Also, this time of year, I mentioned in the clip about setting up the spin and glow bug. These fish this time of year tend to be a little bit lethargic. They're not as active as they are later in the year. And so they do tend to short strike a little bit. I find this time of year, a lot of times they only hook up on the back hook. When they're hooked up only on the back hook, a lot of times it's much harder to keep a kokanee on with only that back hook. Another trout in the boat. This fish again is on the downrigger rod, and this is again on that same green spin and glow that I tied up earlier. This one does prove to be a kokanee, so Chris does catch his first kokanee right here. He may have been being a little optimistic at the beginning of the video when he said he was going to catch 8 of them. He also probably didn't realize the limit is only 6, but we did accomplish what we set out to do. He did get his first kokanee today, which it was a little bit bigger than the one I caught. This kokanee's probably 14 to 15 inches. Both of them did turn out to be late run kokanee, but kokanee nonetheless. And we got almost a double. That fish was in the boat, and then the second rod got hit. This turns out to be another trout. You can hear that wind is howling pretty good. It would have been really loud if I didn't turn down the volume on this video. I was not trying to get him to set the hook. I was trying to get him to pop that line out of the downrigger or the planer board clip out there. He is brand new to it, so he didn't quite understand what I was meaning, but he got it out the second time. And I'm not positive whether this fish stayed on or not. No, we lost this fish, I believe. Oh no, it's still there. And another double. He yanked up so hard on that rod, he pulled the rod holder right out with it. So it was around this time or just before this that I also did hear from Ben that his son, who was on the boat with him, caught his first kokanee today, which turned out to be the only kokanee that they put on their boat today. And here is that fish with Will. No, this is not a 10-pound kokanee. He's long-arming a little bit, but that's what you're supposed to do with your first kokanee. So this last one, this is actually, we were picking up rods to leave, and I can't tell you how many times this happens. Picked up the rod to bring it in, and it turns out there was a fish on it. Now, I don't know if this fish was just hanging back there already hooked on, or if he hit as soon as I took it out of the clip off the planer board. Could have been either one. The fish didn't do much until I got it close to the boat. I'm realizing right about now that there's actually a fish on there. And right there, he realizes the boat's there. At this point, I also know it's a trout. And we already had 6 trout in the boat at this point, and I wasn't super enthusiastic about catching one more trout. So I didn't try all that hard to get this fish in the boat here. And it does come off right here. There it went. But all in all, a good day. 6 trout, 2 kokanee, including Chris's first kokanee. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time on Idaho Hook and Hunt.